parents, we need to talk. Specifically, we need to discuss an ongoing problem that is affecting the development of millions of children worldwide. Overstimulation from irresponsibly produced children's programming or screen time.
Hey, my name's Clay. I'm a speech therapist with over 17 years of experience.
For many modern kids, the day starts with a flickering screen. They watch TV or their iPads while we prepare their breakfast, while we take phone calls, and when they unwind at the end of the day.
Excessive sensory input from very visually overstimulating shows might lead to shorter attention spans, difficulty concentrating, and even potential issues with language development.
Just like us, they're reluctant to miss their favorite shows and will sometimes let us know that through complaints and the occasional tantrum.
Over!
It's over. Check. Okay.
Uh-oh!
Television, of course, is nothing now, but there are things that separate this new children's media from what we saw in the past. In decades past, children's media focused on tangible experiences, storytelling, and free exploration. For example, take a look at Scooby-Doo. Each episode of Scooby-Doo follows a classic storytelling formula where the gang encounters a spooky mystery, gathers clues through comedic misadventures, and ultimately unravels the truth behind the monster, delivering both suspense and a satisfying resolution rooted in logic and teamwork. The transition from one thought to the other thought feels weird. Unfortunately, this has largely been replaced by a combination of overstimulation and passive consumption.
Here's why Cocomelon's apparently melting kids' brains. This study comes out and says Cocomelon's terrible because it gives kids ADHD.
Bright, loud, and fast-paced content like Cocomelon has exploded in popularity, with views for the former numbering well into the billions. Like many series aimed at toddlers and preschoolers, they promise entertainment and even education. However, beneath the cheerful, positive surface lies a series of factors that can be extremely overwhelming and often damaging to the kids watching them. For example, take a look at this.
What?
So, while screens may offer moments of peace for parents and delight for children, what is the true cost? More importantly, what can we do about it? Children beg to be stimulated both mentally and physically, but in the past few decades, the widespread acceptance of this fact has led to a dramatic rise in digital media that forgoes mere stimulation for hyperactivity. Rapid-fire visuals delivered at a dizzying pace, repetitive music, often high-pitched and relentlessly cheerful, audience interactions that would make Dora the Explorer blush.
I recognized she was becoming increasingly agitated when Coco was not on. She would throw tantrums that would sometimes involve hitting her head with her fist. At this point, I reduced Coco time to only a few minutes before breakfast.
Of course, none of this is accidental. Cocomelon did not develop in a vacuum. Instead, they are the result of intentional design aimed at maximizing engagement through constant, intense sensory input. They are not simply entertaining, they are engineered to be addictive. Media companies, be they a single YouTube channel or massive international conglomerate, know that your child's attention has a dollar value. As such, they leverage overstimulation to their own benefit. The first reason is obvious. More screen time equals more ad revenue. Children may not buy products, but that hasn't stopped. The global market for digital advertising targeting children was worth $3.4 billion in 2023. By 2033, it's expected to grow to $25.9 billion. But there's a second, more insidious reason why media companies want our children hooked on their shows. The repetition in music and visuals, especially when linked to specific characters, helps children remember and identify brands, which opens up the door for endless merchandising opportunities. The stronger the attachment to characters and brands fostered by the shows, the higher the likelihood that children will desire related toys and products. For example, take a look at this child running just at the sound of Cocomelon. From a business perspective, this strategy is brilliant. From a developmental standpoint, it's deeply concerning. It's also dishonest. The constant barrage of lights, repetition, and noise tricks parents into thinking their kids are engaged and learning, when in reality, they're mesmerized. Over time, the child's brain learns to expect, and often require, the same level of constant stimulation. Already, studies are pouring out of universities and hospitals, showing that children who are raised on this kind of media often struggle with patience, impulse control, and the ability to enjoy slower, quieter forms of play. And that's just the beginning. The truth is that the long-term effects of televised overstimulation are only beginning to be fully understood. The evidence may be there and the research may be mounting, but there hasn't been any sort of cultural aha moment. Nevertheless, pediatricians, educators, and child psychologists are reporting increases in attention difficulties, emotional dysregulation, and sensory sensitivity in young children. For example, this is being backed up by parents who often have to deal with the child's ongoing addiction to the shows themselves, as well as the products associated with them. Many report that even casually seeing Cocomelon merchandise can be enough to elicit a reaction, one that turns negative if the child doesn't participate in the self-perpetuating money-focused cycle. The evidence is pretty clear. Overstimulating media is changing our children's brains with serious consequences for their long-term development. First, quiet moments, once a natural part of a child's day, start to feel boring or even distressing. Activities like building a puzzle, reading a book, or simply using their imagination become difficult to sustain. Children may become restless, easily frustrated, or unable to manage transitions without having a meltdown. They exhibit poor impulse control, finding it more and more difficult to wait their turn, follow instructions, or think before they act. Because they've been taught to crave the dopamine hit that overstimulating media provides, they may be more susceptible to withdrawal-based tantrums and hyperactivity. In short, the very tools designed to entertain and educate may be undermining the foundational skills children need for learning, resilience, and healthy social interaction. This is precisely where the Montessori method comes in, not just as an educational philosophy, but as a desperately needed alternative in the world of children's media. There is a growing unmet need for Montessori-aligned content, television shows and digital experiences that prioritize cognitive development, emotional regulation, and real-world problem-solving over flashy stimulation. The Montessori method of education has always offered a striking contrast to the media-focused approach, but given what we know about the rise in purposely addictive programming, it feels more like an urgent alternative. The Montessori method of education has always offered a striking contrast to the media-focused approach. But given what we know about the rise in purposely addictive programming, it feels more like an urgent alternative. Founded by Italian physician and educator Maria Montessori, this method is built on a completely different set of assumptions about children. It trusts their capacity to learn, their intrinsic motivation, and their ability to find joy and discovery. It replaces overstimulation with calm, passivity with engagement, and consumerism with independence. Montessori classrooms are prepared environments where child-sized materials are arranged in ways that exude order and accessibility. Children of mixed ages are given the freedom to choose their work, repeat activities, and master skills at their own pace. Teachers are not lecturers, disciplinarians, or, as is the case with overstimulating media, entertainers. Instead, they are facilitators, observing and supporting rather than leading every moment. The result is an environment where children learn to focus, persist, and regulate their emotions, a space that stands miles apart from what most modern children are used to. The results of Dr. Maria Montessori's scientifically informed educational method are that children often develop advanced language skills, greater emotional intelligence, and stronger executive function.
Are one of the major differences between traditional methods and Montessori. In a Montessori environment, you don't see the adult correcting the child. Everything is set up in a way that the child is able to self-correct. Even the tools and the activities are presented in a way that the child is able to correct on mistakes.
They become not just school-ready, but life-ready. Rather than seeking out constant overstimulation and panicking in its absence, they become capable of navigating complex social situations, managing frustration, and thinking critically. And all of this happens not through digital programming, but through real-world interaction with people and materials. To understand why the Montessori method is so powerful, we have to grasp one of its key concepts, the absorbent mind. Dr. Maria Montessori introduced the absorbent mind model to describe the unique way children learn, particularly from birth to age 6. Unlike adults who absorb information deliberately, children absorb effortlessly, unconsciously, and continuously. This is because they are wired to internalize the environment around them without any sense of formal instruction. From language to culture to movement, they soak up information like sponges and thus don't really need formal instruction. Perhaps the best example of this is how children learn their native language. It's not as if parents sit their toddlers down and go over grammar and vocabulary. Rather, kids learn by listening, observing, and unconsciously internalizing the sounds, patterns, and meanings. During these formative learning years, the environment environment plays a critical role. What a child sees, hears, and interacts with becomes the foundation of their mental and emotional architecture. This is a big reason why Dr. Montessori places so much emphasis on calm, orderly spaces filled with purposeful activities. Her research theorized that prepared environments that are rich with hands-on materials nurture concentration, curiosity, and autonomy. This supports the idea that children learn best from engaging with their surroundings through touch, movement, and imitation, not from watching screens. And neuroscience says that she was correct.
The child cannot tell you, cannot communicate what's happening. So we need so much observation and to be able to observe the child. This morning I just had one child here, Pedro. He's going to be 4 months. And it was amazing. I made some sounds, and for the first time he started laughing. The mother was surprised to see that he was trying to converse with me. He's only 3 months, and he was doing so much effort to repeat the sounds that I was using. And I was just trying to talk with him. So there are so many things that we still do not know.
Montessori's observations in modern neuroscience. The concept of the absorbent mind aligns closely with what we now understand about neuroplasticity. This is often defined as the brain's ability to form and reorganize synaptic connections in response to experience. During early childhood, the brain is at its most malleable, meaning that the quality of input during this phase can profoundly shape cognitive and emotional development. To her credit, Dr. Montessori's concept of the absorbent mind was able to identify this long before she had access to the instruments necessary to prove it. And she was right about other things as well. Modern research has also taught us that young children learn best through what's called implicit learning. This means acquiring knowledge without direct instruction, often through observation and experience. Again, this perfectly mirrors Montessori's emphasis on modeling and hands-on exploration, demonstrating that she was decades ahead of the curve. Finally, we have mirror neurons. As the name implies, these are a special class of brain cells that activate when an individual performs an action and when they observe someone else performing the same action. This means they play a key role in imitation and learning through observation, which helps explain why children often model their adults and peers. Critics often point out that neuroscience does not specifically prove or disprove Montessori's absorbent mind theory. However, the fact that the discipline clearly supports the existence of heightened learning capacity in early childhood is enough to draw a series of conclusions. These conclusions can be used to promote the Montessori method, sure, but they can also be used to denounce over-reliance on hyper-stimulating shows, Cocomelon and Paw Patrol. The advantage of a prepared environment versus all-day Cocomelon. While children with absorbent minds will learn from any environment, the quality of that environment determines whether their learning fosters growth or dependency. A Montessori environment invites children to engage with meaningful, hands-on tasks. When a child builds a pink tower, they are learning about critical concepts like size, sequence, and balance. When they trace a sandpaper letter, they are not only seeing and hearing the letter, they are feeling it, which serves to create a multi-sensory memory. And while hours spent watching Cocomelon may teach catchy songs or surface-level concepts, the learning is shallow and fleeting. More importantly, the experience is passive. The child receives input but doesn't manipulate it, reflect on it, or make it their own. To make up for this, the creators of these programs focus on overwhelming and addicting the child to maintain their focus. Putting aside the damaging side effects discussed earlier, this passive learning does little to support the deeper developmental needs of early childhood. The power of the absorbent mind is both a strength and a vulnerability. While it allows for rapid, natural learning, it also means that children are very easily shaped by whatever environment they are placed in, good or bad, stimulating or overwhelming. We've already discussed how children who are routinely exposed to high-intensity television may begin to crave that level of stimulation constantly. As a result, quiet play, nature walks, or unstructured social interaction can start to feel boring or unsatisfying. For these kids, the subtle rewards of slow learning and the joy of discovery are crowded out by the instant gratification of flashing lights and jarring sounds. This is troubling, but the negative effects simply don't stop there. In many cases, these children may also miss out on critical developmental experiences. Fine motor skills don't come from swiping a screen. You need to physically pour, pinch, sort, and build. The same goes for emotional regulation. You can't strengthen this mental ability by watching cartoon characters emote. You need real-life interactions with peers and caregivers. When media becomes a child's primary teacher, these subtle but crucial forms of learning can be delayed or even lost. In response, the child starts to expect life to move at the pace of a cartoon. Anything slower or less intense intense becomes a source of frustration for them. In absorbing so much stimulation, they lose the ability to listen to others, to the world around them, and even to themselves. So, what does this tell us? The difference between Cocomelon and Montessori education is not only rooted in style but philosophy. The former bombards children with stimulation and entertainment in a way that eventually teaches them to expect the same at every turn, consume to feel fulfillment, and get bored or upset when they're unable to do so. The latter teaches them to delight in discovery, push through challenges, and find peace in quiet focus. This brings us to Grasper quests. We believe children deserve more than flashy animations and catchy songs. They deserve content that respects their minds and supports their growth. Grasper Quest was born out of the desire to bridge the growing gap between what children need and what they're being offered. Our mission is to create media that honors the principles of Montessori education, calming, not overstimulating, inviting exploration rather than enforcing conformity or consumerism, nurturing imagination rather than hijacking it. Our initial offers focus on simple bedtime stories. Unlike the constant noise and bright visuals seen on Cocomelon or Paw Patrol, stories told with a quiet charm and accompanied by soft, uncluttered visuals. Our stories are not only designed to support language development, but also foster emotional connection and gently transition children into restful sleep. The simplicity is intentional. By avoiding rapid visuals and exaggerated effects, we create space for a child's mind to wander, imagine, and process. Soon, Grasper Quests will grow to include 3D animated stories featuring Grasper, our gentle, curious main character. Alongside our growing library of content, we plan to introduce real materials, Montessori-inspired toys, and tools that extend learning beyond the screen. Most importantly, every dollar earned will go toward expanding this vision to produce more stories, more materials, and a new, more nurturing approach to children's media. Please like and subscribe to help with the support.